Get Pucked. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Pucked podcast. Dave, Matt, and Vito here. And how you guys doing? First and foremost, on this lovely evening.
Very well. You, Matty?
Always good, man. Always good. Always happy when I'm talking hockey. And to that end, I ask you this right out the gate. We're already a couple games into the season. The Canadiens are 2-2. The games themselves, some of the scores are not what I would say representative of what was on the ice. And I don't want to get into it. I want you guys to get into it. What is your general feeling about the first four games that you've seen? It's a 2-2. They're going 500 right now. But like I say, there's a little bit more to that than I think maybe the record represents. So just general things. What jumped out? Any particular noteworthy moment? Any player in particular, or perhaps, some aspect of the game of the team so far that you want to make mention? Just curious. Either of you, feel free.
Vito, go first. Do the honors.
They're in a situation that if they don't get above average goaltending, they're going to be in trouble throughout the whole season. That's one thing I've come to notice. Monty just looks like somebody who's really zoned in right now and looking to prove a lot of people that he is a number one in the NHL. He's also looking to make his case for the Four Nations Cup and to be one of the goaltenders on that roster. He's doing a lot of good things. He's making a lot of big saves. Opening night, he breaks an NHL record right then and there. So I'm looking at that. They're still obviously having some issues on the power play, but I'm a little more optimistic than I was. I'm not seeing the drop pass as often, but
there's only one reason for that.
Pardon?
There's only one reason why that's happening. We'll get to that maybe later. Go for it.
But then there's also Lane Hutson, who's doing fantastic things. It's almost like you saw his last game. He got like a -4, had a bit of a tougher game, but it's because of all the positives around him. It didn't matter. Nobody felt like they had to worry about Lane Hutson having one bad game because he's doing so many good things out there, and he gets you up off your seat. He's doing a lot of things. Like, he's going to have to clean up his game a little bit. You see, like, there's certain times where he wants to go through a player or do a crazy deke when the simple play is just to like dump it in when you're running out of space. But my first feel is that they are coming out strong, but they need a bit more goal scoring. Doc is slow at the moment. You see, he's rusty. He's trying to figure things out. He did miss a long time last year. He missed the whole season with the exception of 2 games. It's going to take him time, but I think he's going to come around. There's a lot to be excited about, but it's that Laney injury just kind of, they're feeling it. You could see they're feeling it. There's one less scoring threat, but Emil Heineman, a heck of a shot, that guy. He plays a certain game that I'm liking, that I think he could be, in the interim, a guy that they should consider on the second line and take Armia out of there.
All right, fair say. You touched on a lot of topics there. I think that's a pretty good summary of so far the 4 games. Dave?
Touch on all of them. Basically, Emil Heineman has been the bright spot for me. I just think that he should definitely be on that second line. No question about it. I think that he could definitely be there and play, and he'll just grow there. And then, who knows where that could lead once Laine returns. I think he's definitely worth a shot there. I think you talk about the power play. Somehow it's working. They have some pretty good success on the power play statistically somehow. But, look, there's a lot of stuff to work on here.
Could it have been worse?
What?
Could that power play have even been worse?
Let's not even.
It could have been the same, right? It could have been the same.
Even three. Yeah, it could have been the same, and that's what I said last time. But even 3 more goals is still better than what they were last year.
Look, that's why I said there's a lot of work to do on that front, and there's a lot of work to do overall as a team. They need to clean up their game. They need to the last game against Pittsburgh, one good period. Same thing versus the Leafs. I find that if it wasn't for Monty, their record would be significantly worse so far already, and we're 4 games into the season. 5. Yeah. So to me, it's just there's a lot to clean up, but there's a lot of bright sides too. Lane Hutson, looking like he belongs in the NHL. Not a question about that. Definitely things to clean up on his game, but that's everybody, right? And still, again, he's 5 games into his NHL career, 4 games into the season. You can't really complain there. And I just think, to me, there's definitely, you can see the bright spots. Juraj Slafkovsky, 4 points in 4 games. He's doing well. Nick Suzuki was playing well, and finally now it looks like the points are going to start coming, and he could be that guy. Cole Caulfield was, continues scoring, and again, for him, it's always
on that pace, Dave. He's on that pace.
We'll see with him. You know what I mean? I'd like to see it spread out more if we're going to see it at that pace. But yeah.
I have a question for you guys, though, and Dave, because it's one of the players that a lot of people went into the season thinking, "Oh, okay, he'd be but are we concerned? Are we starting to get concerned about Cayden Primeau?
Well, he had one game. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a good showing, but it's been one game, and the problem with Primeau is it's likely that he's not going to see a lot of action. So he'll go between games. It'll take a long period of time for him to get back in, which again is not really fair. And that's kind of why I always kind of advocate more that if you're going to have a backup, it should be a guy who's well established in the NHL and knows he's a number 2. I think you plan differently. I think you prepare differently. Your mentality is different. Primeau's still trying to he should be at the very least saying, you know what? I want the number 1. It should be me. I'm going to train, and that's my mindset. And when he gets out there and he gets shellacked like that, and then he doesn't play for another week and a half, I mean, I don't think they're doing him any favors that way. But again, he's the backup right now. Monty's clearly the number 1. So what else are you going to do about it?
Well,
but yeah, I'm not feeling great about
opportunities, and he's been around the team for long enough that we've seen more inconsistencies from him than consistent games. I mean, the only teams he seems to show up against is Philadelphia. Everybody else, he seems to.
Listen. No, but you got to be fair to the kid to an extent, right? I mean, if it's not going to materialize because of whatever happened, then it's not, and you got to identify that. But if you go back and look at the kid, he showed tremendous promise. Then you had the COVID year. They have him on the taxi squad. He basically doesn't play, and he's just back and forth all over the place. Then you're putting him in the 3 goalie rotation where he hardly plays. Now you got him as a backup, and again, he's going to go in between games. He had the end of last season in Laval, if you recall, that push there that they did at the end. He played really well. Now it's Laval and it's the AHL, but he showed a lot of good stuff there. The problem is it's not a 1A, 1B right now. Clearly Monty is your number 1 guy, and that just means Primeau is not going to get a lot of reps. And so, like you say, yeah, he's got to seize his opportunities. I just think that he's already kind of going uphill battle, I should say, and I think it's going to be problematic for him.
I think I've been transparent about this before. I'm not the biggest Cayden Primeau fan. I think there's flaws in this game, and I think there's flaws in the way just the way he plays the game and prepares for his games. I think there's flaws in that. So I don't think he'll be a number 1 goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens unless he really turns it around, which at to Matt's point, I don't think they're putting him in a position to do so. I don't think that this is an ideal position, because if he was, structurally sound and a guy was on the up and up of his career, I think it would be okay to put him in this position. But that's not what he is. He has to work on his game, and he's not really working his game, sitting behind Monty all year. So
I think his issue is more in between the ears, right? You look at it's more that than his actual skill and his capability and his abilities as a goalie.
For sure.
Really. Because you'll see that one goal goes in and it's like he's completely deflated rather than bouncing back and challenging the puck and doing what he needs to do to keep the team in the game and try to get that win. That's really what I've noticed about Cayden Primeau. His issues are mental. It's all a mental issue.
If you had the reps, you can see this more often and you can build up a tolerance to it. And he's just not going to get the reps. Yeah. I just think it's very obvious at this point that Monty, especially the way he's playing, is your guy, for better or worse. And Cayden Primeau is designated as a backup. The unfortunate part is I think you would do everybody a much better service if he was in Laval and you had some other guy who was like a journeyman backup guy playing as your number 2 here. That way Primeau can go back and forth with Dobesh in Laval and And that would be a really good tandem, right? And they can work on their game and get the reps in. It's just one of those things. I just think that unfortunately he's going to be a victim of the situation he finds himself in. Like you suggested, I think he's got the skill. I think he's actually probably a very raw, talented individual. It's just he's not going to get that opportunity to flourish here. And do I think it's a problem? Yeah, you want your backup to win you games when he's in. I don't feel confident when he's in. I don't think he's going to win you games. So they have to address it at some point, in my opinion. Yeah.
Thanks for answering my question.
Oh, you're welcome. So back to me asking questions now. Okay. Well, you guys both brought him up, and obviously he's the hottest topic around the NHL. So obviously we have to talk about him. So Mr. Lane Hutson, right? You got every media, well, almost every media outlet out there throwing flowers at his feet. You got current players that are being asked about him and saying nothing but great things. You got former players that are being asked about him saying pretty much nothing but great things. You got the fans at the Bell Center cheering, losing their minds when he's behind his own net with the puck just because he has the puck on his stick. That level of excitement, that level of hype. And I'm going to ask you this question. Simple. Is it too much too soon for Lane Hutson, or does he deserve every bit of what he's getting right now? I have a small follow-up after you answer that one.
Right now, he deserves everything that he's getting right now because he's showing that he could play at the NHL level, and he's doing it at a level that people were not quite expecting. Not to this level anyway. It's the things that he's doing on the ice, offensively speaking, is for a kid his size, his age, is very impressive. So give him his flowers. He deserves it. He has to keep working. Obviously, he can't let it get to his head. He's got to keep being a pro and growing into this potential steal that he's going to eventually. Well, I already called him. To me right now, if I have to say, he's on pace to be one of the biggest steals of the last 10 years in a draft. That's what I believe and how I see things. He's doing things that, first off, part of it's also because we haven't had a QB for quite some time, and now you're seeing that this kid's doing it, and he's doing it very well, and he's impressive, and everybody's talking about him for the right reasons. It's not like he's making some blunders and being terrible out there. So right now at this moment, he deserves everything he's getting.
Okay, fair enough. Dave?
Well, I was going to say he deserves everything he's been getting because I think that, he's had a very strong showing. But then, Vito sent out the thing about being the biggest steal of the draft of the last. And I think
I said one of.
I think it's important to pump the brakes just a little bit. He's not. We're 4 or 5 games into the NHL season. You got to let him develop a little bit before pointing out to these things. He's flashy, he's fun, but there's a lot of work to do on his game. And also, can he transcend into an 82 game season? What happens when teams have a read on him? What happens? It's very
unpredictable, though. Get a read on him. He's very unpredictable what he does with the puck.
I understand that, but you could game plan against stuff like that, and we'll have to see what happens. Again, you have to stand up to the rigors of an 82-game season. There's a size question mark and stuff like that. I'm not saying that he's not going to be an amazing guy or a steal. I absolutely believe he will be, but I think you have to pump the brakes in terms of kind of projecting him to be all these things 4 games into 5 games or 6 games into his NHL career now. I think you just kind of have to temper your expectations just a little bit.
So hold on a second here, because you started with the answer saying, yeah, he deserves everything he's getting, which I want us all to be on the same page, right?
You phrase the question right now.
I'm just saying right now, this is a guy, who has 7 or 8 total NHL games, right? We're only 4 games, or I guess 6, right? It's 2 of last year and 4 this year. Okay. So 6 total NHL games. He doesn't come with first overall pedigree. He's drafted 62 overall, steal or not. All right. The fact remains he doesn't have the pedigree, but you've had a lot of time to see him develop, and you got to see him play college and all the stuff that he did. And now he's here and you see what he's doing in the 4 games. I'm not saying anything to detract away from what he's done. I'm simply saying that the level of hype and the level of noteworthy people talking about him. And what really I thought was fascinating is how much Habs fans are taking to him, to the fact that they are like full on cheering with him just having the puck on his stick, not even really doing the spins yet, just behind his neck, kind of doing the little Lane Hutson-esque bobheads that he does now. I'm just curious to know what, like, is that level of excitement? Is it too much too soon? Not necessarily for Merritt, but for him. Because I and this is the part two of that I'm bringing to it. Chris Letang was interviewed about this, and he specifically mentioned, he goes, it's great what's happening. We had a game plan against him. He was on our board and everything. We're already talking about him. I, however, just from one guy to another guy, and just the way the fans were reacting to him, I would be concerned a bit on his behalf because it might be too much too soon. It's going to maybe get to his head. It might throw him off his game. And then when you're put that high and you're that green, you're inevitably going to make mistakes. And when those mistakes happen, when you're in that much of a spotlight, they become amplified. So that's where this is coming from. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just, that's the whole context. So with that in mind,
it's gonna be between him, his coaches, and all of that to say, hey, when you make a mistake, they work with him to correct that mistake rather than crapping on him like some of the previous coaches and administration that used to be where they'd bench a player, a young player, the moment they made a mistake. They're going to coach him. We know we're still in a rebuilding year and things like that. So, we're in the mix, or the Habs want to be in the mix. But at the end of the day, they know there's going to be growing pains with somebody as young as Lane Hutson. But the thing is that the positives, especially right now, far outweigh the negatives. The positive aspects of his games are way ahead than the negatives. Even defensively, if you're seeing it, he's got a strong stick. People are questioning his defensive game. He's got a very strong stick.
Oh, did we lose him? Oh, we might have lost him.
All right.
Oh,
well,
I'm there.
Okay. Oh.
And his IQ is there, so all of that stuff, right? So I'm not overly concerned about that when it comes to him. He deserves it. He deserves what he's getting.
Okay. All right.
I agree with that. I don't think it's going to be an issue for him personally. You can tell he's already a confident kid. I think he's surrounded by the right type of people, the right type of coaching staff. You talk all you want, about Marty St. Louis. I think this is the perfect coach for a guy like him. I think they're going to let him fly, and I think they're smart, right? Like, he's a college player, right? So I think at around game 50, you're going to see he's probably going to start slowing down, and I don't think it's going to weigh on him or anything. I think they're very smart the way they're handling him, and I think just in his personality and his the pizzazz he has on the you could tell he has a set that he'll be okay. I think in terms of that, I don't think he'll get too down on himself when it does. And in terms of the fans and how excited they are, like, there's a reason fans fell in love with Subban right away. Like, excitement, it's not something you see in the city too often. Okay, the players are tailored. Every answer is tailored to. They're boring in the media. It's a very corporate atmosphere. So when you have someone who steps out of the mold, it's exciting. Kovalev, you've seen it all with all these guys, right? So here you have a Lane Hutson coming in. I think it's really warranted, and I think that look, it's a guy who has the nerve to do what he's doing in NHL big games. In his fifth game, he has the crowd on his feet. Let him have it. He deserves everything he gets. I do find it interesting what Chris Letang said, that we game planned for him, and he arguably had the worst game of his NHL career. He was
no points, -4.
I think that it's a telling little thing like that a lot of people will let pass. That it's interesting to me. Those are the things that I pick up on when I watch hockey games, and when I watch take in general. Hockey is a thing. It's what a lot of guys that I've worked with have told me in the past to pick up on, and I think that it was a telling thing. Now, I don't think that's what his story is, but I just found it extremely interesting and just showcases a little bit of the hurdles he might see down the line.
100%. But that's part of being a rookie, right? And
for sure.
they're the fact that they have him on the board and they're already having a game plan for him in his very young career. That says a lot.
It's a great
thing. That says a lot. Sure. Okay, so yes, word about him is spreading like wildfire. Everyone's talking about it, talking about him, whether it's the media, whether it's probably hockey players, whatever the case. Sidney Crosby has spoken about him. There's several players that are already talking about Lane Hutson, other than just his own teammates. So if for them to be putting him in that spotlight and talking about him and planning around him, it's very it's very telling.
I mean, so unfortunately, all three of us are in agreement. I think he deserves everything he gets. Also, it's to the thing that I pick up the most about it is it's the excitement factor. Whether you're cheering or not for a really interesting or really amazing play versus cheering just because he's sitting there waiting to make a stretch pass or whatever, the fact remains the fans are educated. The fans know what they like. And when they see a player like this and they see what he's doing out there, and that's what it is, right? It's that moxie to come in being a smaller sized defensive player and coming into the big league, the best league in the world, and to still dance around people and to pull those moves and to be shifty like he is and to go from one end and forego the back pass and take it from behind his net and skate it right through his speed, right through the neutral zone and get into the offensive zone. You're right, Dave. We haven't seen this. We've been starved as Canadiens fans for this for a very long time. And I think, to your point as well, I think he's been in the spotlight now long enough. I think he was obviously very, very followed as a college player, and it's only going to be amplified now. And I think, as far as I can see, he's got the head to take it. I don't think this is going to make his head any bigger than it already is. I think he has a level of confidence in himself that's already been established. And when he hears the cheers, I don't see him do an extra spin because he hears the cheers. I don't see him do something extra
Who are you
radical.
To? It sounds like you have somebody in mind when you talk like that.
No, I'm not alluding to anything. I think you're alluding to Subban. I'm not saying anything about that.
Whoa! Don't put words in names.
Well, I
in my
think
mouth.
that's what you're trying to make me allude to. I'll get to Subban.
You said a spin. You said a couple of spins.
So he's the only guy who's ever spun. I'm just saying, when you do something for the sake of being flashy, if certain players did do that, I don't see Lane Hutson doing that. I think what he does out there is very much part of his game. And he's not doing something just because he's hearing the rah-rah of the crowd. And so, yes, I'm a believer that everything he's getting right now, media, players, fans, I think is merited. And I think it's only going to get built up from here. I think this kid is someone very special. And so that, and it's funny that you should try to call me out on something I had no intention of doing, because it does lead me into my next little thing I wanted to do with you guys, which was a little game. I'm sure you've played this game before. You're not allowed to give me a big story. I'm going to give you and present you two options. You simply just have to pick one. That's all. And it could be for any reason. All right. So to be fair, it'll be two individuals, obviously, and this is all Habs related. And your reasons, you can explain them later if you want, but not right away. I'm going to give you your two options. You pick one, and that's it. Are we ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Vito, are you ready?
There's no.
Those listening at home, are you ready? Perfect. Let's get into it. The first pairing, I offer you this: Lane Hutson or PK Subban. Dave?
PK Subban.
Okay. Vito?
Lane Hutson.
Okay. Next options: Nick Suzuki, Saku Koivu.
Nick Suzuki. Easy. Easiest. That's the easiest question you'll ask all day.
Let's not embellish yet. We'll get to that. Okay. Vito.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
You're on the clock. You have 3 seconds.
Saku Koivu.
Oh, these are answers from the heart.
Okay. Next up: Juraj Slafkovsky or Alexei Kovalev?
Kovalev.
Yeah, Kovalev.
Kovalev for both of you? Okay. Next one. This is going to be so much fun for Vito. Carey Price or Patrick Roy?
Patrick Roy. Easy.
Okay.
Carey Price.
Oh, God. What is going on?
And the last one. This is a special one. Coach Randy Cunneyworth or Coach Domenic Ducharme?
Okay, Randy Cunneyworth.
Both. Wow.
Randy Cunneyworth, man.
Yeah, Randy.
Randy?
He wasn't given a fair shake, the poor guy.
Yeah.
Okay, Randy wasn't given a fair shake. All right. Okay. So out of curiosity, which one of those would you guys like to add a little bit more context to? So, Dave, you chose PK Subban over Lane Hutson. You chose Suzuki over Koivu. You chose Kovalev over Slafkovsky. You chose Hua over Price. And you chose Randy Cunneyworth over Domenic Ducharme.
To be honest, I don't think I have to explain any of those picks. I think those are all common sense picks. The one controversial one might be the Hua over Price. And I'm going to tell you that because I think Carey Price was an awesome goaltender. And I think in a different situation, he would have done and excelled just as much as Patrick Hua. But the fact is he didn't. He had injury troubles and he was stuck behind a terrible team. So Patrick Hua, who was also stuck for the record behind some okay teams himself, and managed to pull it off and win. But I
still had some good players that became some Hall of Famers shortly after. Of course.
Okay. I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying that would be the only one that I would listen to a debate about.
Okay, and the rest you're saying slam dunks. There's no debate.
Slam dunks, and if you argue against it, it's from the heart. That's what I believe, as opposed to
okay. Interesting.
Common sense using the upstairs.
So just
not to be mean to Peter.
Oh no! Listen, and I gave no context. So your picks were less from the heart picks and more on the merit of skill. Hockey player, is that what you were going with? Okay, very good.
100%.
Vito, for recapping purposes, you chose Lane Hutson over PK Subban.
Yes.
You chose Saku Koivu over Nick Suzuki. You chose Kovalev as well over Slafkovsky. This way, you chose Price over Aqua. And, of course, you chose Randy Cunneyworth over Ducharme.
I went with Lane Hutson over PK Subban, not because, if you look at the way both of them were very, very good skaters and were very dynamic in the way they skate and could, had fantastic edge work and whatnot. PK, you give the edge on his shot. I find Lane Hutson's shot needs a lot of work, especially in terms of power. But I feel like eventually you're going to see Lane Hutson get you in less trouble than PK Subban did. PK Subban was, I feel like I got roped into this one. PK Subban used to do certain things that used to drive me up the wall. Loved him like with the Habs. There were certain things that he would do is where he would out-deke a player, and then all of a sudden he would do a pivot right back into the player and get himself into trouble, and it would cause a breakaway, whatever the case may be. It would be a turnover. There was things like that would drive you up the wall, but before that happened, he would have done 3 or 4 amazing things, great plays, rushed it, whatever the case may be, rip a cannon of a shot on the power play and do things like that. So I just think that in a few more years, you're going to see Lane Hutson's game be like a cleaner version of PK Subban's.
Wow, that's a bold take. I mean, PK is a Norris Trophy winning defenseman. He was on a very high trajectory until he kind of, to me, lost his passion for hockey when he was dealt out of Montreal. But completely faded. But the time where he was here, he was physical. He was good. He was.
And there's going to be certain elements of PK's game that just Lane Hutson won't have. The physicality in that aspect won't happen.
You won't have the shot either. They're
not built the same way. But you're going to see from an IQ point of view, on ice IQ, from creating turnovers and all that stuff, you're going to see Lane Hutson's going to be stronger on that aspect and on that front than PK Subban was. They're both going to get you up off your seat in different regards.
That's the price to pay for the art of wheeling and dealing. And I think Lane Hutson will eventually also have to pay that price too. I think you'll see as his game develops, that'll happen as well. Maybe not to the rate of PK Subban, but I think it will eventually happen. The turnovers will happen for him as well. And I think if that's the only thing that's separating Lane Hutson from PK Subban for you, I think that's a decision from the heart, as opposed.
You can I'm thinking that there's some logic behind it. Now I could be totally wrong, and in the end, Lane Hutson becomes a bust. Breaks a knee, God forbid. They're not going to
don't put that out there.
Whoa.
But I'm just saying that if you look at the way Lane Hutson carries himself and the way he plays on the ice, and you could change certain qualities and skills from one to the other. I just think that in a couple of years, you're going to have a much cleaner game than what PK Subban ever had on the ice.
Okay, but will it be as in, I don't know. I could kind of see where you're coming from, but I disagree.
Now,
wholeheartedly.
Nick Suzuki
That one is the worst
and
one.
Saku Koivu. That one wasn't easy.
It was the heart, 10,000%.
But it's hard to forget what Saku Koivu did to Joe Thornton every time he was on the ice. It's hard to forget that Saku Koivu got 70-plus point seasons with the Montreal Canadiens. It's hard to forget everything that Saku Koivu had to do during the darkest days of the Montreal Canadiens. Okay? It's hard to forget those days. So I gave the ever so slightest edge to Saku Koivu. And it kind of hurts a little bit that I have a Saku Koivu poster looking right at me over here right now.
Of course you do. I see.
All right?
I see.
So, but it was, that one wasn't easy. Now, the CP and Roy one, that one is because, Dave, you said it. Carey Price was dealt a bad hand in terms of the teams that were built in front of him. His number one centers have been David Desharnais, Scott Gomez, Thomas Plekanec at times when there's been injuries, and Phil Deneau. Those have been his number one centers. Throughout his entire career in the NHL, he's had one player over a point a game. That player is Alex Kovalev, which is one of the reasons why I chose him over Slafkovsky. Kovalev was a 90-point player, hit 100 points. Kovalev was a player that Wayne Gretzky himself said that it was the most talented player on the ice. There was a lack of consistency there. That's the only thing. That was the issue with Kovalev. So it's hard to look and say, hey, I'm going to choose Slafkovsky over Kovalev, because if I would have done that, then that would have been from the heart, because you're looking at a first overall pick in Slafkovsky.
I just want to point out, I said, please add your context to the number one pairing that you felt needed to explain. You are having to explain every one of your picks.
Well, it's because I feel like I had Dave judging everything I said.
Look,
no,
I mean,
this was the whole purpose of it. This was the fun about it. I mean, some of them I think also are relatively, I don't want to say easier picks than others, but yeah, it comes down to what kind of fan you are. It comes down to when I give you no context and I give you two players' names, how do you think about it? Are you judging it more? I should go this way. Are you judging it more skill-based and more what they did? Or are you going this way, which is a little bit more from the heart and what they meant and all that kind of stuff? And that's why it's a fun exercise. And so for that same activity, if you want to, anybody who made it this far in the episode, let us know in the comments. It's we'll post it in the description if you want to go and read them over instead of listening. Who would you take and what is your reasonings why? Is it more skill-based? Is it more what they meant? Is it from the heart? Is it a favorite player? Just let us know. It's for fun. No wrong answers. No wrong answers, Dave. No wrong answers.
I must say, though, I'll take a side note on this, that I do enjoy reading the YouTube comments a lot. And I do feel like these guys know their hockey. Our fans know their hockey. And even though I don't agree with a lot of what is said out there, and I think that a lot of people are very passionate about the Habs in particular, and it kind of taints their view of the world, I do think that they know their hockey and they're very knowledgeable, and that they could even be, I feel like I could have a conversation with them and they, not be out of place in terms of hockey knowledge. So I love our fans. I mean, and I can't say that about other places and other shows I've been on. Don't necessarily have the, the smartness of our fan and sharpness of our fan base. So as much as, people want to hate my opinion sometimes, kudos to the fan, kudos to our comment section.
There you go, Dave. Throwing flowers to the Lane Hutson of the comment sections. Our fans.
There you go.
That. And again, and to that note, thank you all for taking the time. I mean, good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter. If you take the time to write something to let us know if you've listened all the way through and you want to make your opinions known or your comments about something, we're always here for it. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. If you let other people know and say, hey, have you checked these three bozos out and their takes about the Habs, and they watch us, we appreciate that too. Which also brings me to the, red tape of it all. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much. Otherwise, that brings us to the close of this episode. So thanks very much. Let us know your takes on Lane Hutson, what your feelings are. Is everything that he's getting right now merited, or is it maybe a bit too soon? Let us know what you think. We'll post the compared players so that you guys can see that. Let us know if you want to take a stab at that and what you think about that. Otherwise, that's it, man. So thanks very much. And for Dave and Vito, I'm Matt, and this was Get Pucked.